I mean, I don't see how hard that is.
I think there's a bigger gap between your buttons.
Yeah, well, we'll just have to cut when they do.
You can just pause.
Ella is so professional, she'll just pick it straight back up. Hi, I'm Ed Bailey Bloodstock. Yeah, I'm glad you wore a check shirt, mate. You look spot on.
I know, it's smart.
No, you look great. No, you do. Absolutely.
Welcome to the Harry Derham Racing Season Preview, sponsored by OLBG and hosted by me, Ella McNeill. Today we'll be talking about Harry's fantastic 2023-2024 season and also the upcoming season ahead and everything in between. We will be having some in-depth chats about yard superstars, Nordic Tiger, Psycho, and of course Brentford Hope, and also that famous New Year's Day treble. Today I'm joined by trainer Harry Derham, Bloodstock Agent Ed Bailey, and stable jockeys Alice Stevens and Paul O'Brien. Guys, how are we?
Well, I think you've absolutely nailed that intro there, because I know you were very nervous about it. I think you've done well.
You know, one take wonder me.
Yeah, we're very good, I think. We're, it's exciting time of year, as you know. So we did our first schooling morning this morning, and time of year that all the horses that Ed bought in the spring, we're sort of getting to know. Horses from last year that we put away thinking you're going to hopefully be nice horses. So if you're a National Hunt Racing fan, I'd say the next 6 to 8 weeks are pretty exciting.
The dreams are still alive at this stage.
Yeah, they are, aren't they?
Good summer?
Yeah, absolutely. Fantastic summer. Great to build the team. We were busy at the sales and managed to find a few more recruits. So very much looking forward to seeing what they have to do this year. But they all look fantastic and it's great to see them back in action.
We've had an interesting year, haven't we? Because like this time last year, we had basically form horses that were like horses that like really and lovely horses, but horses that were ready to crack straight on with lots with handicap marks. And this season, what Ed and I have been able to do is buy a group of horses that are a lot of 4-year-olds, some 3-year-olds, stores, point-to-pointers. So that brings with it different challenges, doesn't it? Because, you know, a lot of those horses we've bought, you're thinking, okay, well, he might run in 2 or 3 bumpers. I mean, Paul and I were having a long chat about this the other night, that a lot of these horses will run in a couple of bumpers and put them away. So you're in a year of a lot of really exciting horses, you're right, but a lot of horses that over the next 2 or 3 years we want to try and make, rather than horses that were ready-made with handicap marks that you're going to crack on with. So it's that really exciting transition between buying form horses because that's what you can afford, and then starting to buy some younger, really exciting types.
Projects. How's your summer been, guys?
Yeah, very good. Been busy. May and June were quite busy racing wise. I was still quite busy, and July and August alright have been pretty quiet, but very busy riding out again now. And yeah, it's, as the lad said, it's very exciting at the moment. Getting a feel for all the new ones, the new horses and stuff, and there's still plenty from last year as well that hopefully can have good seasons again. So yeah, it's busy.
Yeah, and Alice, your official second stable jockey now to Harry's. How's the summer been for you?
Yeah, very good. I had a busy May, like Paul, and then pretty quiet after that, but was able to go into Ian Williams and ride some flat horses out for him. Done plenty of work in the gym on myself because I had the time. Just try and put a bit more weight on the right way. But yeah, no, it's a very exciting time of year and it's nice to be back in here, and the yard seems and everybody's excited, so it's a real buzz to be around.
It's nice for me that as a claimer, you obviously want to be riding lots all summer, don't you? But I didn't have many runners through the summer, and so Alice still claims 5. That's right, Al, is it? Yeah. How many have you got left? You've still got a few.
4.
Yeah. So I'm absolutely delighted that she's not ridden loads of winners all summer, because it means I can use that claim later on. Suits me well.
Put it to good use.
Yeah, exactly.
But let's kick off with things then. Before we look forward to the season ahead, let's look back at what a phenomenal start it was last season. I'll just go through some stats, but you had 179 runners, Harry, 44 winners, a 25% win strike rate and a 62% win and place strike rate, and almost £500,000 won in prize money. Some pretty incredible stats there, but I'm sure there were plenty of standout moments for you all, but we want to know what your best moment was of the season. It can be a performance on the track, or maybe even a moment you had here at the yard. It can be anything of that sort. Who wants to kick us off?
You drive, because I've got a feeling that I know which one was your best moment.
Oh, well, I've got about 3.
You can give us a flavour, that's fine.
I mean, I have to say, like, getting to ride Brentford Hope at Newbury, that was a real buzz because he's shown to be a top quality horse, and that was my first winner for Harry as well, as a conditional. So that was brilliant. Obviously, Nordic Tiger, he's been an absolute pleasure to ride. I'm very lucky to get on him, and then I got a sweet spot for Fidelio Vallis as well. He's just a bit of a champion. So there's
3 good ones there.
He came in third. I thought he was going to be top of the list.
Well, I can't. There's no favouritisms here.
Yeah, of course there's not.
Paul, have you got a good moment?
Yeah, there was plenty of good days. To be fair, we were lucky. I guess Sir Psycho won early on at Ascot. That was good. And then we had a winner at Kempton on King George Day. That was Court and the Act won. That was a good day as well. And then towards the back end of the season, Brentford Hope won a nice pot up in Haydock, and then ran another stormer over in Punchestown. So they were all highlights.
It must have been a good season because you've both not picked 1, you've picked 3. So.
They just know that an owner might watch this, you see, and they don't want to say this was the one highlight. They want to say they loved them all.
Are you going to pick us 3 highlights then?
No, I'm not going to pick 3. I mean, there's same as the other guys. I mean, there's so many great days that we had throughout the year, but I thought it was really special being over in Punchestown with a few horses that had really respectable chances, and to come away with 2 seconds, I thought was a great effort by everyone. Obviously a bit of bad luck with some of the other runners, but Brentford ran a stormer over there, and it was great to be over there and be involved. And Punchestown looked after us all so well. I guess when you're in the sport, you want to be involved with the big days, and Harry had always planned throughout the year that he wanted to have a big raid of Punchestown, and if he didn't go to Cheltenham and went there, and it was great to be involved in Punchestown. Looked after everyone so well. It was just a really good experience. So that was the highlight for me, I think.
That's a good one. And Harry, you're going to be able to pinpoint one, or you can give us a couple?
I could give you a few, but I'd be boring. I'd be here all day. It's hard to beat New Year's Day for me because it was 3 horses. So there was very often, if you have a winner, there's still disappointment on the day. Another horse will get beat, won't run up to scratch, whatever it might be. But 3 horses, 3 different jockeys, 3 different set of connections. I don't think there was one person in the yard that wasn't involved in one of the horses winning that day. And one was at Exeter, which is about as southwest as you can go. One was 2 were in Musselburgh. To have 3 winners in a day was really, really amazing. And it was on the back of a sort of mega week. As Paul mentioned, we had a great day at Kempton Wincanton Boxing Day. A few days later than that, we rolled on to Taunton and had another good day, and the horses were flying. And then to have a treble, like I still get chills thinking about it now, because like early on in your career, those days are unbelievably cool. And the one I was massively confident about was Republican, which was the last one of the day, and Fidelio came in, fantastic, great connections, lovely win, and then Bolsover Bill down Exeter won. And then it's funny, you go up there thinking Republican will not get beat, and then you have 2 winners, and all of a sudden you're going, we can't have this much luck. Do you know what I mean? So all of a sudden you're like stood in the stand going, well, this won't win because, and he did it. And I remember I had to go straight from Musselburgh Racecourse straight to the airport, and I was just sat in the airport, and I was like, I want to get drunk and be really excited. I just sat in the airport on my own. It's just like one of those moments on New Year's Day in an airport on my own, like absolutely buzzing, but just no one to buzz with. So, but that was I will remember that day for a long time. That was cool.
We'll discuss that in a bit more detail later, but let's move on to funny moments. I was here quite a lot during the winter, and I've definitely got a few up my sleeve, but is anyone going to kick us off with a hilarious moment that you can remember?
I don't have a hilarious moment because I'm not that funny. The funniest moment of my season and was we had a horse called Ballambar who won very nicely at Ludlow second time out for us. And the funniest moment of that day was my great friend Ed here, before the race, walking up and down the line of bookmakers, putting money on, and then after the race, walking up and down the line of bookmakers, taking money off of the bookmakers and putting them into these various pockets. And I just remember stood in the stand just laughing, thinking, Ed's had a great day.
Yeah, it was very special because Ballon we bought one of the owners, Vernon Taylor, who's a really nice man, as a director at Ludlow, and he probably gets the most nervous of anyone I've ever seen watching a horse race.
Vibrating.
And he's there, and we had this plan that we wanted to target the race at Ludlow, and Vernon was just a mess. He was so excited, and his son there.
Well, it so rarely comes off, doesn't it?
Yeah,
like you go to your home track.
Absolutely. I just think it was just an amazing amount of boxes ticked in one go, and everyone was just so happy that it came off. And
great from your point of view. Swept the bookies clear.
Great ride by Paul.
Yeah, that was a good day, wasn't it?
Very good.
Because we were in Ireland the day before, weren't we?
Yes.
And the three of us watched Alice winning on Ilva de Soir, going down at Chepstow, going down a escalator on Ed's phone. Yeah. And I was going, he's not going to win, he's not going to win. And Paul's going, he is going to win, he is going to win. So we rolled on to Ludlow, and yeah, Vernon, I mean, that was great, wasn't it? That was so good.
It's really good fun.
Would that be your funniest moment too?
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, there's a lot of funny moments throughout the year. Obviously, it's great. Around the yard, this is a really good atmosphere, and it's quite funny. I think Harry is a very good trainer, and a big attribute to that is the fact that he's incredibly competitive. So competitive that he thinks he's the fastest runner that this yard's got as well. And he's also got his favourite game of being who can sprint the fastest across the round gallop. And he's just not. He's not as fit as he used to be. The thing is, as time goes on as well, if he gets beaten, he wants a rematch, but then he lacks the fitness to back it up. So
who's the champion at this game?
Well, it is me, but
it's you.
he thinks he's won the winner takes all final, and then decided to trip me up basically.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I'd like to see the rematch.
I think we need Paul O'Brien best.
Yeah.
No, I've seen him run around the racecourse. He might stay well. He's in no speed.
Oh, too good. Paul, what's your funniest moment?
There was a few, we had some good laughs along the way, but one that kind of comes to mind was there was a horse huffing and a puffing. He caught a few of us by surprise. I don't think he was the easiest to train, was it? He was supposed to run and then missed out, and then anyways he went to Newbury one day, and he had the engine.
He had a massive engine. Yeah. And Joe, who led him up, was like telling us the whole time, he said, this is a nice horse. Yeah. And like we thought he was a nice horse for like 2 years' time.
Yeah.
So anyway, he wins this novice hurdle at Newbury, and me and Paul are like, what has happened there?
I think all the guys back here were watching it too, and it sounds like I could nearly hear them from Newbury.
Yeah, that was some good videos of that.
Yeah, we'll have to try and clip it onto the camera, because they were hilarious.
Yeah, Rupert won't thank us for showing that. It's very worth watching.
Oh, bless him. And how about you, Alice?
Like in the yard, I think there's always a good buzz, and everybody's they're all good people and great fun. But I think one day Dom, who normally rides Nordic Tiger, Harry took his coat off because he's riding Vidalia, and he put it on the stake, and he just left it there, and everybody else just walked past. And I mean, Dom was on I think it was like Scamalak or something like that,
a lovely ride.
Just a lovely ride, and he just sidestepped, and Dom was just stood next to him, and we were next to you. It's like whoa, 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 and then since then we've got this meme in the group chat that's now like the Australian bloke that goes, what happened out there? And he's like, oh, he just whipped around.
She just whipped around on me, so
And if we can put the clip on, that would be really funny, because the horse just literally turns around and he just falls off.
He did a whip around.
So every time someone falls off now, he's like, oh, he just did a whip around.
Hopefully that won't be the first of Alice's accents today.
He's
got some really good accents.
Yeah.
Too good.
There's a lot to be said about the team though, because that's what makes it, and it's an enjoyable place to be around.
Yeah.
You can certainly tell when last lot of the day when Joe Rowe gets added to the string, and the jokes get a little bit less. You can't get them all on camera.
Yeah, that was a really good way of describing it, actually. Yeah.
And for those that don't know Joe, he's not the smallest lad, is he?
He's not a shrinking violet, is Joe. Yeah.
Oh, fantastic.
I can't believe when you were talking about your summer, you didn't talk about Taylor. Excuse me.
I'm sorry.
Oh, excuse me.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you just crop that in? I went to see Taylor
please.
Swift 3 times.
So, other than your great moments here at the yard, you got to saw your idol.
I've been professional there, but Taylor's my god. Yeah. And now the best thing is Harry is in love with her as well.
I've heard.
But like on
I'm a big Swiftie.
on a deeper level, not just like she's great to listen to. Like
This is an enormous problem. This is going out onto like a sort of. People can watch this away from the yard now, but I don't care. I've become a. Thanks, Pat. Yeah.
like
Swiftie till you die.
Yeah, just because we're not all Fred again fans.
Oh yeah, he is good there. Paul's a big fan.
Taylor Swift and Fred again. You can get a bit more
Well, we have
a diverse nature of music taste.
with our jockeys. We have Taylor Swift or nothing else,
Yeah.
and you like the house music, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Spent the week in Ibiza in the summer.
Did you?
Giving it big
No,
riffs.
I wasn't a
Did
wee.
you like a bit of chasing status?
No, that's a bit kind of drum and bassy for me now.
What sort of guys do you?
I like Eric Prydz, I like him, Solomon. There's a few others, kind of music.
I'm sure they make great
It's cool
music.
music. I wouldn't. Yeah, it's not all too well. The 10-minute version. It's just no good for me. Moving on.
Yeah, glad we got that sorted.
Yeah.
But like plenty of highs to celebrate and funny moments to laugh about. But obviously in racing, we all know it's never smooth sailing and there's always some downs with the ups. Are there any moments that stand out for you guys that are maybe perhaps lower moments from last season that you're going to learn from now and build on and take them into the new season ahead?
I will happily drive on this one because I learned a very good lesson. Ed mentioned how competitive I am. My most gutting result. One thing I would say is anytime a horse gets an injury, however big or small, that is the worst part of being a trainer by miles, because obviously your owners know that you do not want to be bringing them bad news, but bringing an owner bad news is hideous and it never gets nicer. But my worst result on the track last year was Monvielle getting beat at Uttoxeter. It was the Saturday after Cheltenham. I sent Paul to Uttoxeter. He missed a winner on Brentford Hope at Newcastle. I was convinced Monvielle would win that day. And he did everything right. The race went to Paul's plan and he just got nabbed on the line late on. And I was absolutely spitting after the race. Not at Paul or just at the fact we'd got beat. And like the horse has run some really good races for us. I haven't trained a winner for the Fergusons yet. They're new owners to me last season and they've been great. But I was almost like, it's not fair. Everything's gone right in this race and we haven't won. And so that was my lowest result. But in terms of lessons, it taught me a really good lesson because James Ferguson, who is a really good guy, very sporting guy, after I'd had a lemonade and calmed myself down in the owners and trainers after, he said, Harry, we're delighted. The horse has run well. Paul's done well. Don't be so angry.
Yeah.
And I actually thought to myself driving home, I mustn't, because actually you can control lots of things bar the result. Paul gave the horse the ride that we planned. Everything went right. The horse ran the best race of his season. We just got beat. Yeah. So actually the result could, fine, let it make you sad, but don't let it make you angry, because all that is doing is wasting energy. And James taught me a good lesson that day.
Absolutely.
I still wish we'd won.
Yeah.
But
you get beat far more than you win in racing, don't you? So it's a feeling you have to get used to. And how about you, Ed?
Yeah, I mean the injuries is obviously the saddest part about it, but I guess a big finding, and I say it every year, basically walking away from Cheltenham, is that if you want to be there, it is so competitive and so hard, and it just I think the most focused I ever am is after the festival week. Really? I just think if we want to get there, we've got to work so much harder, and it just kind of like, it just sets the bar very high. So I kind of walked away thinking, we want to get back there with some big chances, and we've got to go find them and make it happen.
And from an outside perspective, you guys work pretty damn hard. When you say work harder, what do you mean by that?
You know, we've got to make it happen. You know, we've got to, whether that's finding horses, finding brilliant supportive owners, and just doing all that we can to get to where we want to get to. But I'm sure the emotions of people walking out of that place can be the highest and the lowest. I bet in the weighing room it's probably, there's some people on cloud nine and there's some people just gutted.
Oh,
but,
absolutely,
and it's not all about that week, but I'm just saying that at the top level it's just,
I think an example of that was 2 weeks after that, we had a good order for one of our owners, and Ed put his neck on the line on the Saturday evening and said, "There's a horse running tomorrow. I'm going to Ireland to buy him. He's a really good horse. I love him. I think he'll win, and if he does win, I want to be there to buy him." And he did that. So I think, like, obviously, if you have a horse whose maximum rating is 124, it's no good thinking about Cheltenham because you can't be there. If you're lucky enough to have owners in the yard that are spending a lot of money on young, bright prospects, then obviously there has to be an awful lot of work that goes in to buy those horses. And, this spring was the first time we had the opportunity to do that, wasn't it? So hopefully in time those horses will develop.
And the hard work will pay off, I'm sure. Alice, Paul, any particular moments that stand out for you guys?
Winning too far in Brentford Hope.
I mean, that is not a bad problem to have.
I mean, for me, from like a riding point of view, it's just I've learned a hell of a lot in a very short space time. You know, I've learned a great deal from pointing, but you know, I'd have said I'd have learnt more in 3 rides for whoever it was, Harry, Henry, etc., than I did after a few rides pointing, because it's just different. It's very similar, but it's very different. And you know, there's a few where I feel like I'd have gone away, and if I could have had my time again, I'm sure Paul would be the same, anybody would be the same, you'd have done something so different. And me, I've got a different result out of it, but look, it's you lose more than you win, and yeah, you just got to learn to, you know, learn from, if there was a mistake there, learn from it and move on and try not to do it again.
Yeah, for sure. Paul, how about you?
Yeah, much like Alice, really. Like, there's obviously lots of ups and plenty of downs, but it's kind of important just to try and stay fairly level-headed if you can. A couple of second place finishes, you know, you'd sometimes you wish you could do something different again, but you can't. You just have to try and move on and learn from them. Yeah.
And I can imagine staying level-headed is not as easy as it sounds.
Yeah, it's not that easy, but like, it's just experience too, I suppose. You just get used to it, and yeah, there's always the next ride coming around the corner, hopefully anyway. So you just have to keep level and carry on to the next one.
Right, let's move on to one of the yard superstars, Brentford Hope, also known here at home as Dave. And what a little legend he has been for the team. He's the yard's top performing horse for last season. He ran a total of 7 times, winning 3 times. And he also finished second in the ultra competitive listed hurdle over at Punchestown for his final race of the season. He's only failed to finish out of the top 3 once for you, Harry, and he's now rated 148 over hurdles. An absolute model of consistency, I would say. Harry, you must be super proud of Brentford Hope's achievements last year.
Yeah, very, very happy with him. I mean, the only time he's was out of the top 4 was when I ran him on good firm ground, which was my fault, not his. But yeah, this season he's been great. He obviously started his autumn campaign winning at Newbury, 3rd in the Jerry Fielding, where ground was dry enough that day for him, I felt, in the end. Bit tacky, but ran very well. And then we just were sort of struggling with him over Christmas, couldn't quite get him right. Not really sure why, but he just wasn't in great form. Anyway, we had him back in really good nick going to the Betford Hurdle for the morning of him to have pus in the heel of his foot, and that was a real blow because he was in great nick for that race. And look, obviously it was won by a very good horse. I'm not saying we would have won it, but I think we'd have run really well. But I think the race sets up well for him, and you only have to look at what he's done since to think that he'd have run a good race in it. Anyway, it didn't happen. He pulled too hard then 2 weeks later. But ran well at Newbury. Then he really got on a roll. Won at Newcastle really nicely. Then he won at Haydock. Haydock for me was a really, really good victory that day. I mean, look, he clung on in the end, but he was pretty dominant. And I think if Paul had his time again, he'd have jumped the last, sat up for another 100 yards, and he might have won 2 lengths, because he has that little run, doesn't he? And then he sort of tapers off. But Ed and I bought him to be our flag bearer to start our career and take us to some Saturdays and run in some bigger races, and he's done just that. And I might be completely mad, but I actually think he hasn't stopped improving yet. This time last year, we were really struggling to get him up to fitness level, and he was a bit challenging to train. He wasn't moving that well, and we were a bit up against it for a while, to be honest. But this year, I don't really know why. Graham thinks it's because he went into the field with lots of confidence and had a great spring, and he was feeling good about himself. So it could well be that, but it's not inconceivable that he could improve again. You know, he was a high quality flat horse. It was a massive performance at Punchdown under 12 stone. Look, he was beaten by Daddy Longlegs, who went up a stone after the run. You're not going to beat a horse who's a stone well in, but I don't think he's done improving. So let's hope he can sort of carry on and keep giving his owners an enormous amount of fun, which he has done already.
And what's he like at home? I know Graham does a lot of work with him, doesn't he? He rides him every day.
Yeah, he's not kind to say he's nondescript, but you wouldn't notice him. No one would ever pick him out as that he's the most talented horse in the yard. He's not over big. He's not a great trotter. He's a very well-natured, well-mannered horse. Graham rides him every day because he's ridden him from the first day I had him. Always got on very well with him, and when we first had him, he wasn't the best mover in the world, and he took a bit of knowing. So it just said Graham knows when he's right or when he needs a bit of help. I'd also say, in terms of, we're talking about his day-to-day life, mention Zoe Vorsper, who is my osteopath, who does a lot of work with him and just keeps him. He sort of sometimes struggles down his back, and she does a lot of work to keep him supple and just keep him moving well, because I think he's got that bit of Camelot in him, that he's not perhaps the bravest in the world in terms of, he wouldn't have that high a pain threshold, and I think if he's a bit sore somewhere, he'd tell you. So Zoe's done an amazing job, and you know, he was busy in the spring, but actually when he's fitter, he's easier to train, because you just don't do much with him at home then and just keep him happy. But he's a joy, and you know, some yards would say he's only rated 148. He's not that good a horse. Well, he's been a superstar for us, and we're very, very grateful to have him.
And Ed, you sourced him from Richard Hughes' yard, and as Harry mentioned there, he's got an amazing flat pedigree, almost kind of bred to win a classic, almost. But talk us through what caught your eye about him when you saw him.
Yeah, I mean, he was a favourite for a Derby at one point. He was an incredibly high-class flat horse and famous for a brilliant Jamie Spencer ride on the flat. So he was a horse that we were well aware of, and you know, huge kudos to Harry. When we were at Newmarket Sales, we were actually looking for 3-year-olds, and at the time we were getting blown out of the water because they were all costing a fortune. And I just said to Harry, would Brentford Hope be of any interest to you? He was right in the yard, stood outside the stable, wasn't he, when we were there? And luckily it was a time when Harry was training in Lambourne and had seen the horse a little bit in Richard Hughes' string. He had done a tremendous job with the horse, and he just looked incredibly well handicapped over hurdles at the time, off 114. So yeah, it was great to get him, and big bravery from Harry to have a go when we didn't necessarily have owners for him. It was a decent throw of money to give, and thankfully he'd been very well rewarded. So it's it's a great story.
I would say also, like, he's owned by a syndicate of people. There's people with 25% of him, there's people with 5% of him, 10%, and they have been amazingly sporting. You know, they're a really good group of lovely people. Some have a very in-depth understanding of racing, and some have a very small understanding of racing, and all of them have just said, we'll go where you tell us, we'll follow, and you know, never, I'm not sure we should run him there, just let's go and enjoy him. And you know, there's a good few of the guys in him that it's their first ever horse, and you know, it's almost spoiling to have a horse you know, like that. You know, it's your first horse, you think, oh my god, how lucky can you be? But yeah, like the reason we were so keen to buy him is we're of the opinion that flat racing fitness is very different to jump racing fitness, and what Richard Hughes could do with a horse, I absolutely couldn't. But what we're doing with them is asking them a different skill, and you know, that it's I'm guessing, is all about explosive speed. And I've spent a couple of mornings with George Bow in Newmarket watching how flat horses are trained. It's a completely different discipline. And with a flat horse, the risk is always, will they take to the jumping way of training? But you would say it's improved him. And I don't know why that is, but it's great that it has.
Absolutely. And Alice, you rode him to a 16th length victory.
Yeah, emphasis on the 16 there, Ella. Keep going.
That Harry raised a little eyebrow about, but no, what a fantastic ride. And you've completely outclassed the field that day, and it looked pretty straightforward. How was it for you?
Yeah, what was he off? Was he 1-2-2 then?
Quite well in, wasn't he?
Yeah. So,
Ruby Walsh texted me saying, next time you've won that well handicap, make sure you get paid for it.
Yeah, 1-2-2, he was off.
Yeah. So I was very fortunate to be riding him, and the style of the race really suited me on him, because they just went a hard gallop, and we were just able to sit in our comfort zone, let them get on with it, and then it did start to fall apart in front of me, but I also I definitely got a bit of a rush of blood to the head.
In Alice's defence, so the thinking we were trying to run him on the flat in a race before the Jerry Fielding, and that didn't quite happen because he was slow to come to hand. There was a race at Nottingham we were thinking of running him, that was abandoned. And what we wanted to do after Haydock didn't happen, he didn't, in the Swinton hurdle when he was favourite, he didn't let himself go on the ground at all. And we felt going into Haydock, he'd had a couple of confidence boosting wins in novice hurdles, and we were on the upward curve. Then he got well beat, and I didn't want him to put him into a big race straight away. I wanted to try and regain the winning thread and get him used to winning, because I think horses, they can thrive on that, as he showed last spring. So that's why we went for that race. Now, we didn't know they were going to go like the wind in that race, and they're all like from, you could tell what was going to happen from 3 out, because the only horse that was travelling was Dave, and the race just fell apart. Now, Alice didn't need to give him a belt and a kick after the last, but it was just one of those things. I remembered I did it exactly the same, and my first winner as a conditioner on the very same race, and Paul said, "Oh, I think I won 30 lengths on a horse that never won over hurdles again," and Paul said to me after, he said, "I don't mind, just don't do it again." Yeah. I said the same to Alice, and in fairness, she hasn't, so. No harm done, it only lost to Sir Jerry Fielding.
But in the long run, it hasn't done him any harm. No. And Paul, let's discuss his final 2 runs of the season, the rides you've given him. He won at Haydock up at the end of March in the series final up there, and it looked like he won with plenty in hand that day.
Yeah, he won well that day. Probably, as Harry kind of said, he probably got a lot of confidence after getting beat at Newbury, whilst running well a few times. When he won at Newcastle, he just seemed like a different horse than at Haydock that day, and travelled very well, and I felt one with a little bit up his sleeve. So yeah, that was brilliant.
And his final run of the season over in Ireland at Punchestown, always, as we all know, super competitive and a big field that day. But you kind of sat mid-div the whole way and just patiently kept creeping closer and closer. And he ran on in the end so well to finish second behind the expensive purchase of Willie Mullins's, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. He ran an absolute screamer over there. So. Yeah, just bumped into one of Willie Mullins's again, but that was probably right up there. That was a career best.
Yeah, and you just felt he was a little bit quiet that day, didn't you? You just felt that maybe the end of the season had just come.
I remember cantering to the start that day, and I just thought he seemed a little quiet, but anyways, he dug deep for me and ran really well. Yeah,
it just seems like he has such a lovely attitude, always wanting to try for you. And
no, he's very genuine. Yeah.
And Harry, what are the plans for him for this coming season then?
Well, he's rated 148, so you're between sort of grade 3, grade 2 and carrying top weight and handicap. So it's sort of up to him in the sense that if he improves, we can go and try and compete in some of those graded hurdles. And if he doesn't improve and we've plateaued where we are, then we'll have to go back into handicaps. But the plan currently is the first 2 races of the season is... there's one on the 6th of October at Tipperary, which is a grade 3 hurdle. There's a listed hurdle at Kempton later in October, but the ground is always quite fast, that meeting, and I'm not going to make that mistake again. So I'd love to go to Tipperary and then to Wincanton for the elite hurdle. They in my opinion, those couple of races will tell us, do we have any business in trying to run for some good prizemen in some of those better graded hurdles, because there's never many runners in those races. And you know, Paul and I were discussing it yesterday that the Kingwell hurdle last year was worth an awful lot of money on deep ground, and it was a very open field. So as I say, we're between that place of, do we stick in handicaps and carry top weight, which he's proved he can do very well, or do we go up into graded company? So Tipperary and Wincanton, I'm hoping will show us where to go with them.
You've enjoyed taking horses over to Ireland, haven't you? It's something you're quite keen on doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, we obviously did it for the Easter Monday with Give Me Five, and then Punchestown was a marvellous trip, as Ed said. We were very well looked after, and the key is the right horses in the right races, and my head is saying, well, Brentford Hope's done well in handicaps. He's at quite a high point of his mark now, so let's try in a grade 3 and a grade 2, and if we can progress, then we've got a business going for those races, and if we're not quite good enough for them, well, we know the answer. But that's why I want to go for a grade 3 in Ireland, because it feels like the next logical step up.
Absolutely. Well, very exciting. We can't wait to see him this season, that's for sure. Right, let's move on to the next yard superstar, Nordic Tiger, and what a horse he's been for the yard. And he is very excitingly a new member of the OLBG Racing Club that have a growing number of horses here at Harry Derham's yard. Now, Nordic Tiger ran a total of 8 times last season, and he's achieved some pretty impressive form figures. They are 4, 5, 3, 3, 1, 1, 2, 1, and he rose from 103 to 122 in handicap. And he's a super exciting horse to be part of the OLBG Racing Club. You must be thrilled to have him as part of that club now, Harry.
Yeah, what I think is nice is, obviously for a racing club, it's dead handy to have a good horse. So that ticks that box. But also, the amount of club members that have come to the yard and met him, and he stands there with his ears pricked, and thoroughbreds are very, very nice animals, but they're not in their environment at home. They're not used to having 25, 50 people stood around them, wanting to pat them, have a picture with them, and he absolutely loves it. So I think he's a great club horse in the sense that he's run plenty, he's really consistent, tries his best, but people can get a connection with him. To be able to come here, meet him, stand at his head and pat him, and get to know a horse. I think if we can get more people in racing that get to know the animal that they're watching and understand why we love Nordic Tiger so much and why he's such a nice horse, that's great. So he's a star in lots of ways, is Nordic.
Absolutely. And Alice, you rode him to victory 3 times last season, Wincanton, Huntington and Southwell. And the Wincanton and Huntington races were only about a week apart, weren't they?
Yeah, if that really, wasn't it?
So
6 days maybe.
Yeah.
It's not often you get a horse winning back-to-back like that.
Very on me. Very, very on me. But he was good at Wincanton, and we sort of had to.
Yeah.
So, because I think it was right, Wincanton was a conditional an amateur race, wasn't it? So he had no penalty at. So theoretically, Alice didn't claim in the conditional race. He won. And then he was going to run off his mark with no penalty with Alice claiming 5 or 6 days later. So it was like, I was nervous going to Huntington, but we had to, didn't we?
Yeah, exactly. Like he was impressed. I think he just got a lot of confidence that day, which is probably why he backed it up at Wincanton, because he went round there with his head in his chest, just jumped fantastic. And, he didn't beat much that day, but he did it so convincingly and he just gained, I think he grew a foot after that, and then went to Wincanton and, he beat that Rockavanga of Murphy's that was now going to run twice straight after. Like, we were back in trip, it was like softer ground, wasn't it? We had just had a load of rain. No, by any means. We had to kind of like go out there and ride our own race and like make make all and go from there. But yeah, he was brilliant. He was tough that day. He was still a bit babyish because he's a very good jumper, but because he was in front. He had a good old look around. And that was. Again, he grew a foot after that.
He had every excuse to get beat that day, didn't he? Because things didn't go perfectly for him, but says a lot about him. He's he's a very genuine horse. Like even when he gets beat, you feel like you've given everything.
Yeah, and that's shown by the way he stuck his neck out at Southwell as well. He only won by, I think it was a nose, wasn't it, that day?
Yeah, I mean, if there's a picture and it's not even a nose.
Yeah.
It's just
Definitely won though, Al.
Yeah, it's the bob.
Yeah, that was tight, wasn't it?
Yeah, he was a pleasure that day. He just travelled. He'd love those little brush hurdles.
Yeah.
And I was always confident. There was a bit of traffic at the top end, but he was. I just always felt confident on him, and he, you know, like we just said, he tries so hard, and he deserves a lot of success, that little horse, because he's rated what 122 now. He acts like he's rated the same as Brentford Hope.
Oh yeah, he believes, doesn't hold it? Yeah.
Does he show that round the yard? Has he got a bit of an attitude, or is he?
No attitude, but you know he's in good form when Dom's going past the grandstand at the gallop and he's having to lift his hands up. And, you know when Tiger's in good form then, and like Scorlium, he loves it. He absolutely loves it.
And you said there that he's jumped so well, you know, generally. Harry, would he have any scope to jump a fence, or would you keep him over hurdles?
Definitely has the scope to jump fences, I'm sure of that. He's only 5, and I don't think we're done improving yet, just because of his attitude, and he seems to be getting better. So I'm not in a wild rush to jump fences. I mean, this time next year he's a 6-year-old horse, so I think at this stage we'll stick to hurdling for another season. But I've no doubt we'll jump fences eventually.
Any plans up your sleeve at the
I
stage?
think we'll start at Newbury on the 7th of November. There's a conditional jockeys race, 2 miles around there. I think 2 miles will end up being a bit sharp for him, but I think it's a good starting point of the season for him. And I'd much rather start at 2, be staying on, than run over 2.5, be a bit fresh, over travel, and then not quite get home. So we'll start at 2. I think we'll end up going up to 2.5. But last year he improved with his racing. I don't think there's any reason why he won't do that again this season. So he's a horse that is great because he takes his racing well. You can see that he enjoys it, and we'll just keep plotting away and finding the right races for him.
And super exciting for the OLBG Racing Club members to have a horse like him involved in the club. Yeah,
very much so. And like, he's going to give you lots of days out. He's always going to be competitive. There's just lots to like about him. Right, let's move on to another horse that I know everyone in the yard is very fond of, Sir Psycho. Or scared of. Also known as Sid in the yard. And as Harry says, Harry, you often say that his character matches his name down to a T. What is it about Sir Psycho, you know, that he has his own quirks and definitely his own character. He knows his own mind, and he shows that at home, doesn't he? Yeah, he's just... he's a slightly unusual horse. Yeah. In what I find is that most horses, if they are herd animals, and if they are in a barn, that they can see a horse there, they can see a horse there, they're stood next to a horse there, they can hear others around them, they're dead happy, and they get fed 3 times a day, they're delighted with that, they're very well looked after. But Sir Psycho is not that animal. He marches to the beat of his own drum, really. I've come to the conclusion, I might be completely wrong here, that he's claustrophobic. The reason for that is he's a dreadful traveller, and we just tried one day taking all the partitions out of a lorry and him travelling in basically a stable. Yeah. Instead of a normal partition for a horse, and he travels much better like that. We've given him a stable away from all the others in the barn. He's much happier in there. When you're in his stable, he's not pleased about it at all. As soon as you go out and you close the door behind him, he's delighted. He's just an unusual horse, and everyone is fond of him because he's quirky and he's funny and he drops Beth and he gives you all a laugh. But he takes some managing, like there'd be 3 people in there on a morning trying to catch him, and like if you went in there unarmed, he'd kick you quite quickly. Yeah, so Beth often has her hands full, doesn't she? Exactly, yeah. But do you know what he is? He's an intelligent horse, because if Graham ever goes in there, who feeds him every day, he's caught straight away. He'd never bite the hand that feeds him. Yeah. But he's a horse that came from Paul's. Paul rang me and said Sir Martin Broughton's going to ring you and ask you to train Sir Psycho. I think he's a bit fed up of being in Ditchit, and for all the reasons we've just talked about, you can see why a horse like him would get sick of it. But Paul is way too modest to say any of this, so I'm just going to say it for him. Like, that horse would not have had any successive offences if it wasn't for Paul, because a lot of people have seen his first chasing effort under an extremely good jockey in Bryony at Bangor at Paul's. That did not go well. But his owners were very keen to try chasing again. And I said to Paul, look, we're gonna have to try and see how we get on. And Paul, before Ascot, I'd say I reckon you jumped over 100 jumps on him.
Yeah, we did do a serious amount of schooling, but he never put a foot wrong, I'd say, did he?
So there you go. See, no, he didn't. You're right, but like, he didn't, and he scored very well. But if people want to see a show of like whatever about tactical riding, a skilled horsemanship, watch that ride at Ascot, because like I mean, the horse who fell at Bangor and then ran through 3 wings, jumped into a paddock. I then took him to Ascot first mate. It shows what a young lunatic trainer I am. But the way Paul rode him that day.
Paul from watching the video.
Yeah, don't watch that race at Bangor, Paul. Just go but like, you watch that race back, like the way Paul got him around there, like that was genuinely as impressive as a riding skill as you'll see.
What is it, Paul, about about him that you get a tune out of? Why do you think that is?
I don't know, to be honest. As Harry said, there was a lot of hard work done before he went to Ascot. Now he had jumped. We'd schooled him every week for God knows how long before, and he'd been on grass. And then we took him to Lambourne as well. We literally crossed every T and dotted every I you could think of. We ditch boards. Do you remember there was whatever happened that day at Ascot, there was going to be no excuse that we hadn't done the job at home anyway. So, and it worked out. So
there was one thing I remember you saying to me. We were talking about him one day, and you said Brian Hughes one day said to you, sometimes you don't want to override those horses. You just want to say to them, if you're going to go, I'm coming with you.
Yeah. So it's just kind of. He's as you said, he's fairly strong-minded, so there's no point trying to
sit pretty quiet on it.
Yeah, I try not to interfere too much.
And Ed, you were talking before we rolled the cameras that you were thought that was one of the best rides at Ascot that day.
I genuinely think it's the best ride I've seen you ever give a horse. I think it was amazing, and I think to a lot of people's, a lot of racing enthusiasts might not appreciate it, but those that have jumped fences really will, because he looks so kind of lands a bit heavy sometimes and things, and just keeping your balance in the right place when you're trying not to move on a horse like that is an art. And I thought it was absolutely magnificent on a horse that you want to go out there with confidence, and you're going out on a horse has already blotted his copybook. So I thought it was great. It was great to see.
It was very amusing. So Sir Martin Broughton and the friends that own Sir Psycho, obviously we thought we had him in good form, didn't we? But I'd sort of spoken to them all and said, look, I'm not sending Paul out there with instructions. The only plan, if you like, is get a rhythm. Where if you're in first or if you're in last, just get a rhythm, get him jumping, see how you get on. And anyway, so I had everyone quite well said that this is what's happening. There's no pressure. Just go out there, get jumping, see how we go. Anyway, Paul comes out and said, yeah, we'll find a rhythm, get him jumping. And I'd be very surprised if we weren't far away. And all of a sudden you could see them thinking, here we go. And so I was like, oh God. But that was a great day, wasn't it? It was a really good day.
There was another time as well, but that's the most nervous I think I've seen you at the races.
Well,
you were grand when I gave you the saddle, and then I walked out and the bell rang and you were like, you didn't know. and normally...
Do you know what made me so nervous? Like, as Paul said, I think for 2 months we scored him every week.
Yeah.
And his last schooling session in Lambourne genuinely couldn't have gone better. Like, I was watching him going, well, we can't do more than this. You know how to jump. You just have to keep your head at the races. Anyway, 2 days before, once I declared him, I was listening to the Nick Luck daily podcast, and Nicky Henderson came on it and said, there's only 2 tracks in the country I wouldn't send a first-time out chaser, and that's Cheltenham and Ascot. And I remember thinking, oh my God, what am I doing? And so, because you think about it and you go through it and it's fine. It's always a week away. It's always a day away. And then I'm legging Paul up and I'm thinking, I'm about to send this fella out round Ascot. Anyway, happily it worked out.
And he went to Punchestown for his final run of the season, and he was travelling so beautifully into that race, but he did fall 5 out. Was that just a mistake on his part?
Oh, it's one of those things. It happens. They're big fences. I mean, he'd run a brilliant race at Newbury the time before that, finishing second. For me, that was his best run of the season, I thought. Punchestown, Paul got absolutely annihilated off Molly's Mango the day before and was too sore to ride. So JJ Slevin stepped in. That would be the word, wouldn't it? Stepped in and was giving him a marvellous ride. But JJ said to me after, he said, as Paul said, he takes no one. And of all the horses, and you'll say this more, of all the horses to not know going out in a race, he would have been tricky to ride, wouldn't he?
Yeah, but it was just one of those.
Just one of those things.
Yeah.
And Sir Psycho threw himself at the jump, and it happens.
He was going to run well. He dipped in form a little bit even here, kind of midway through the season. But he was coming back to life a bit towards the end, and it was a shame that happened. But hopefully he's had a good summer and can go again.
Where will he go now? Will you go back to Ireland with him at all next season? Or?
So he's actually starting on the 7th at Newbury. So his Sir Martin and Jocelyn Broughton, they're coming into the yard that day, and there's a Newbury meeting. There's a 2 3 handicap chase. Okay. The front half of the season for him looks like Newbury on the 7th and Newbury on the 30th. You know, he seems to perform well around there. Mm-hmm. For a lot of horses, it's not relevant, but a 10-minute horse box drive for him is much handier than a 4-hour drive because he doesn't like travelling that much. So, we're going to go there, and he's been a marvellous horse for them. You know, he was winning juvenile hurdles as a 3-year-old, and he's had a big old injury in between it. The main objective with him is if I can just try and keep him sweet, try and keep him enjoying his racing. You know, he didn't nearly jump off one day last year. He was in such a grump, wasn't he?
He did, I don't know, he got that into his head. He did it twice at Newbury. But actually ended up running big races, but gave a lot of ground away at the start. And But then, after that before he was going to Punchestown, he was flying around. He was
buzzing, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Whenever his owners ask me he's in good form, I always say, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah.
Ask him.
You never know quite what you're going to get.
Exactly.
Right, well, let's park Sid there for the moment and move on to Harry. You've already mentioned it briefly, but the New Year's Day treble back in January, and what a day that was for Team Harry Derham Racing. In his second year of training, Harry achieved the remarkable feat that trainers wait years and years for, having a treble on New Year's Day. Fidelio Vallis, Bolsover Bill and Republican were the 3 horses that helped you manage that feat. And Harry, I did read your blog briefly before coming on today, and I did have a bit of a chuckle to myself because New Year's Day isn't your favourite day, is it?
New Year's Eve wouldn't be my favourite, yeah, for sure.
And you described it as just a typical Monday going racing. What did you think beforehand when you were, in the airport heading up to Musselburgh?
What did I think? Well, I was very confident of Republican, to be honest with you. Like, he'd been Ed and Mary Ware, his owners were. I was told he wasn't an easy horse to get right, and they said, look, if you're going to get him right, it'll probably be first time out to catch him. So I'd have been really disappointed if he hadn't got beaten. Bolsover Bill, we thought would need the run. It was his first run for us, but was just hoping Vic were going to go down there and have a really good ride on him at Exeter and enjoy herself. I thought if he'd finished 3rd or 4th, wonderful. I'd have been thrilled he'd have won a month later. And Fidelio Vallis, Charlie, who rides him every day, was saying to me every day, this is as good as you've ever had this horse. And I was just convincing myself to tell Alice to go fast enough, because he's a horse who he can get into a high gear and he can stay at that gear. And, people always, I think if you've got a horse that's rated in the 140s, they're really good animals, and Fidelio can get into a high gear and just cruise. And I remember telling myself, just make sure you're bold enough to say to Alice, send him on. And I think I just said to her, let him fill himself up around that sand bend. But apart from that, just send him everywhere. And
that's what you did?
It was an epic day, that wasn't it? Oh, you sent him, didn't you?
Just as that. We're in short.
What was going through your head when Harry told you to send him?
Well, he said to me, I cannot have him any better, and all Charlie Jewell was saying is he has never been so good. So it was all down to me to not get it wrong.
No pressure.
No, but it was like Harry's theory was brilliant because I got to get a feel for the horse at Ascot. That was his first time up in trip, and I learned a hell of a lot from him that day. You know, I just learnt his style of jumping, you know, what I'm better off doing if we're not meeting it right or whatever. So, you know, I went up to Musselburgh with so much confidence in, you know, in him and myself on him, you know, which I think was a huge linchpin in the whole thing. And, you know, we got a brilliant start, and I just kicked him in the belly and we never looked back at all. Like he's just relentless though. Like he would just gallop them into submission.
Yeah, he was good that day. When he's on song, you know, he's a good horse. He's a really good horse. He's won 5 times over fences, and it was actually quite a relaxed watch that was, because halfway down the back I said, this lad's winning.
Yeah.
Because I knew how fit he was, and he's a classy horse, and he had decent handicap, was in trouble, and he just had his ears pricked, and he every time he got to a fence, you could see him thinking, here we go. And that was just a wonderful watch. And John and Debbie Gregory, John Gregory in particular, has helped us massively, hasn't he, from the start? Like, he bought Ed and I lots of horses to start with for us to sell on, because, you know, obviously people wouldn't give us any credit to start with, because for fairly obvious reasons we're just starting. And John bought horses and said, you know, get them sold when you can, and to have a big winner for him was really, really special. And he was there. My mum and dad were there, absolutely hanging, because John had got them drunk the night before.
You forget it's New Year's Eve.
Yeah.
It's actually quite a funny story. So me, Amy Deans, and then Sophie Kavanagh, who was in love with the public man, Republican, and we went out. We couldn't find anywhere to eat because obviously we're in Edinburgh and it's rammed. So we get a pin that we speak to Julie, and she's like, come and have dinner with us. So she sent us a location, put it into Uber, go into the middle of Edinburgh, and we're there. We go down these spiral staircases into this really cool bar, and we're like, bloody hell, like,
Jeff's done well.
Jeff has done well. John's having a great time. We get a call off Julie. She's like, where are you? So we're in the bar, and she's like, so whereabouts? He said, we went down the spiral staircase, where are you? And you can hear in the background say to one of the waiters, have you got a spiral staircase? There's no one. He's like, no, we're in the wrong place.
Oh, God.
We jump in this Uber, and by the time we get there, they're half cooked. Like they are flying along. And then we're trying to, like, we've got an early start. I'm riding the next day, so I'm as sober as a judge. And then, like, they're just getting even more drink down them, and they're just singing karaoke to this one girl in the bar. Like, there's no one else there. It's just them and this one singer.
Typical day for mum and dad, really.
Yeah.
Normal night out.
I knew when I knew they'd had a good night when I arrived into the owners and trainers. It must have been midday or something like that.
Yeah.
And mum and dad were both sat in the owners and trainers. January, Musselburgh, sunglasses on. I thought, ooh.
Ooh, it's for everyone.
John's got a hold of you guys. Ed and I have fallen victim to John Gregory red wine, haven't we?
He's an absolute pro.
Is he?
Yeah,
No messing with him.
After See Lot More Businesses first, sorry, tangent, but after See Lot More Businesses first win at Huntingdon, John, we went to a local hotel called The Retreat, which is very nice, and Ed and I were treated to John, lots of red wine. About 3 hours later, we went out. John said, God, this red wine, John, is absolutely fantastic. He said, the good stuff had gone about 2 hours ago. You've been drinking rubbish stuff for the last 2 hours. You just haven't noticed.
What's
You're
the
like,
nice stuff like?
cheers, John.
Oh, but at that stage, you'd had a winner on New Year's Day. Must have been delighted. Bolsover Bill then runs over down at Exeter, and you had a bit of a technical malfunction, didn't you, trying to watch the race?
Yeah, so I'm watching the race on Amy Dean's, my travelling head girl's phone, because my phone won't play the race. So I've legged Paul up, you know what you're doing, and I'm watching the race. And as I've legged Paul up, they are leaving the back straight, freezes, can't get it back on. God's sake! Paul goes down the track, can't stand the post. I call William Hill Radio on my phone, and it goes through the options of greyhound racing, horse racing. Anyway, it gets to the commentary, and it says, "And Bolsover Bill holds on." So I was like, oh, happy days. And then bounced up to the owners and trainers viewing platform, mum and dad and John and Deb there. Bolsover Bill's just won. And so then I'm there and I'm going, well, this can't win now. Yeah. And Dad turns to me and goes, Harry, for 3 weeks you've been telling me Republican's going to win. So I was like, yeah, that's right. And watched, and That's quite straightforward, wasn't it? He idled a bit.
Yeah.
Late on, missed the last. He missed the last, yeah.
Did you know that Baltimore Bell had won?
I didn't know until it was Amy picked me up
Sophie,
after the track.
yeah,
They came out
dancing
and
around,
said, so yeah, then I knew then.
So once you'd won on Republican, you then found out you'd done the treble?
Yeah. So everybody was in pretty good form, as you can imagine. That was a good day.
If you need a man to finish the job, get Paul O'Brien to finish the job.
But he did fluff the last, and it's quite ironic, the horse that was catching him was Call Me Harry or something.
Yeah, Call Me Harry, it was,
quite
isn't
funny.
it? Yeah. Imagine if he'd beaten me, that would have really upset me.
But you said it earlier, 3 winners, 3 jockeys, 3 different connections, the whole team were involved, and to do it so early on in your career will be a memory I'm sure will last a lifetime.
Oh yeah, that was just one of those really, really special days. And actually, the longer you train, and I've not been training long, obviously, the longer you train, the realise how hard it is for those days to go right. Because you often go racing and think, oh, 2 good chances, or and so often one gets beat, one runs well, or makes a mistake at a crucial time, whatever it is. But to have 3 winners on that day, I could have floated home. I was absolutely buzzing. I remember getting back to Heathrow. You had a long day because I think you drove, and I remember getting back and calling you, check how you were getting on. You were like, I'm about an hour from, because you were going Pam Slice the next morning, perhaps. So I'd flown from Edinburgh to London and to drive the 40 minutes back home, and Paul said, I've got about an hour and a half to go till I was like, God, you haven't got a long old drive ahead of you.
But it was a good omen because your OLBG sponsorship as well for the yard kicked in that day. So that must have given you a good feeling.
Well, it was one of those mad things. Like, I jokingly said to Richard once we'd organised the sponsorship about 2 months before it, or I might have been 6 weeks. I was like, right, we've got to have a treble on New Year's Day then. Sort of like throwaway comment that you just say, and...
You manifested it.
Yeah, it was magic. That was really, really magic.
Well, what a day that was, and a fantastic season last season, Harry. Let's move on to have a quick look ahead for the exciting season coming up. And before we go in to find out your 3 to follow, just like to find out what you're most looking forward to. Let's kick off with you, because you've had a busy summer buying some nice horses, that's for sure, for the team.
Are we looking for a specific horse, or just like what we're looking forward to about the season?
We'll go into the 3 to horses afterwards, but just generally what you're most looking forward to.
I think Harry touched on it briefly earlier, but a lot of these horses, they're not all about necessarily this season, they're about the future. But I'm really excited about just the quality that we've got coming through the yard, which is definitely rising as time goes on. And, seeing the horses on the gallops this morning, for example, there's a lot of new faces and a lot to look forward to. So it's just, hopefully we're up in the quality each time. And I think that, there's a lot of horses to look forward to. So that'll probably be it.
Alice? What are you most looking forward to this season?
What am I most looking forward to?
I can't remember the question.
Taylor Swift on tour again.
I was busy thinking about the 3 to follow. I was thinking, Jesus.
Which was your favourite show from Taylor's of the 3 you went to? That's the question.
Yeah, forget the horse chat.
Just hopefully riding lots of winners for a great trainer and a great team.
Have you got a target specifically that you want to reach?
I'd love to give it a really good go at the conditional jockeys title.
Yeah.
I thought to myself, if I could give it a go, and if you don't get it, you've had a really good year trying. Mm-hmm. And hopefully in the process, I'm going to pick up some new connections, build stronger connections, like, with Harry and Henry Daly and etc. So it's very much a forward, think about not just this year, but it would be great if I could do it, get that title. It would just be a good thing on the CV. It would be a great feeling as well. But just constantly building on, connections and myself, and ride lots of winners.
Well, we'll be rooting for you. And Paul, what are you looking forward to?
I wouldn't want to single out one horse in particular, because, as Ed said, there is at the moment what looks like a really, really nice bunch. A lot of them are young horses, but there's a few of the older ones. Brentford Hope has been mentioned, has been a star, and maybe something like Imagine. Hopefully he could. He's a nice one, I think, to look forward. Yeah.
Well, let's do the 3 to follow then. If you were going to kick us off there, would you pick Brentford Hope and Imagine as 2 of the 3?
Yeah, there's again, that's kind of hard to single down to 3. Yeah, because some of the younger ones, I think, are really nice, but may not run loads, But there's a couple of nice horses to go novice hurdling as well that won bumpers last year. So it's an exciting time.
Harry, are we going to nail down to 3, or is that?
I will, because I've been asked to do it. But like Paul, you could be here for. We're very, very fortunate in the sense that 3 could easily be 10, and like there's a lot of really exciting horses coming through at the moment. Paul's just touched on Imagine. Like, he's a fantastic horse. I'm very pleased I didn't run him in the spring. He's had a bit of time. I'm going to go for 3 novice hurdlers just because they're younger horses. It doesn't matter, I think, more or less of any of the others, but I just think that a novice hurdling season is an exciting year, isn't it? Because you've seen that they've got talent in bumpers, but then novice hurdling, you find out a lot about them. One is Noah's Great Rainbow. I've always thought the world of him. I think he's a really smart horse. 2 is Queensbury Boy for David Maxwell. He's a seriously good horse. He's got a lot of talent. And another one would be Jasmine Bliss. She won 2 bumpers last season. She's a very strong mare, very strong-minded, very tough. I'd be extremely surprised if jumping didn't make her a better horse. Yeah, she's schooled, and I can't see how jumping won't be an advantage to her. So as I say, like, you could be here all day, but those 3, if you said, a year ago, if you said you have those horses in your yard, you'd be like, oh my God, I'm so lucky to have them. And I think there'll be 3 well above average novice hurdlers.
And Ed, you can nail down to 3.
It's so hard to narrow them down to 3. Very hard to narrow them down to 3. Again, like, it'd be here all day trying to pick 3, but as
Mossy Fen Road 3 times.
As Harry did the novice hurdlers, I'll pick some bumper horses.
Very diplomatic, Ed. Well done.
I will chat Mossy Fen Road in the mix. Who looks incredibly exciting. Looking forward to him. Corcoran, who looks like a very nice horse. Might need a little bit of time, but hopefully a nice horse to look forward to. And I'll chuck this again. You could be here all day, but. I'm quite excited about a horse called Club de Rev, who we recently bought. I just quite like him as a slightly different profile, but he could be a bit of fun, I think. So
love that.
Yeah.
Good job. And Alice?
Again, Noah's Great Rainbow. He seems, hopefully, touch wood, looks like a lovely horse. Ilva de Soir, I think he's really turned into made a man of himself last year. He seemed to improve a lot quickly, so hopefully him. And then I'll go with Ed on.
I think this is offside. Personally, you can't copy us.
No, okay.
You've technically only got 1 at the moment because I picked Noah. Yeah. So Ilva, come on.
And do you know what? My good friend Nordic Tiger. Just because he's Tiger.
Perfect. Well, guys, that's the end of the Harry Derham racing season preview and review. Thank you so much for your time, and bye.